I'm not a hero. I'm just a normal guy, but on that note.
Mick Malthouse, what are your reflections on Mick as a coach?
The one that really tickled me was the year we won it and we all went dressed as old men.
Was there moments in your career where you kind of like pinching yourself?
I was out. I was like, I can't keep making prelims and not getting it done. Or we lost the grand final the year before that. It wasn't money. It was actually one of the worst offers I had.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to BackChat, powered by Paywise, of course. This man joins us from my neck of the woods, actually.
Oh, where are you from?
Geelong.
Oh, wow.
Where I'm from.
Yeah,
he is joining us from Geelong, but he's a little bit removed from his hometown as well. Zach Tuohy joins us, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome.
Zach, welcome.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Mate, thanks for joining us. Now, I know that you want to explore a bit of a pathway into media post-career, which we're very much excited about looking you take that journey. But I don't know how much you've been paying attention to what we do over here at BackChat. But our first question is the same to every guest. I think we've done definitely over 100 of these. And the first question is always the same. So I don't know if you know this is coming, but I'm going to hit you with it. We want to know your greatest sporting achievement, thanks to TABtouch.
Of course.
Not on the football field. We know you're a premiership player with Geelong. We know that you've played across 2 clubs. We know that you're the leading games record holder for an Irishman in the great game of Australian rules football. We know that you can play footy, okay? Congratulations. I feel like we could be copping a bit of Gaelic action here,
I think
maybe.
we should put a rule in.
No Gaelic?
No Gaelic.
Okay. We want to know your greatest sporting achievement, not on the AFL field. I'll give you Gaelic.
Okay,
I'll give you Gaelic.
Go on.
Have you got something for us, Zach?
We can do Gaelic football, can we?
Look,
yeah, of course.
Yes, yeah, you can.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely can.
Righto. Obviously, I watch every single episode, so I'm completely prepared for this question. If you could just give me a minute, I just have to think. Look, I obviously grew up playing Gaelic football. I loved my soccer growing up. That was kind of where my real initial passion for sport kind of came, and that was my ambition to be a professional athlete. And I did once come back from a long injury, played in an All-Ireland final in the soccer, played really well, went to extra time and then missed the penalty that lost us the game. So that's right up the tippy top.
That's rough.
And I actually remember it because I took a risk. I was wearing bright gold boots, which is the first time to ever wear them, and it's the last time I'll ever get that obnoxious and loud again. So.
Yeah, of course. You would have copping that from people as well.
I'm pretty sure
the guy with the loud boots.
That's what Brazilian Ronaldo used to wear. I'm talking the duf type. Yeah, the duf.
Yeah, they were vapors, those gold vapors, those old school. That's exactly what they were. Yeah, you picked it.
That's good.
That is brilliant. I like that.
Yeah.
And a little bit of self-deprecation as well off the top.
Of course. Yeah.
It's no 5 for 16.
It's no 5 for 16. Did you ever play cricket or ever roll the arm over?
No.
That's right.
5 for 16 and under 12s over here.
Ireland's coming in with cricket. They're getting better and better.
I think fistball, maybe we need to introduce Zach because he did spend a lot of time as a defender in the AFL. Yep. So we'll get into fistball another time though. Mate, we want to talk about your journey a little bit, and it's pretty unique when we look at AFL footballers across the land. Irish born. Did you know much about Aussie rules footy growing up? I can't imagine you did.
No, I knew a bit. So the international rules, which is no longer happening, but that was quite a big deal in the early noughties back in Ireland. So that gave us kind of the initial little bit of exposure. Ty Kennelly was kind of at his prime when I was growing up. So there was kind of a mild awareness, but it wasn't until I was 16 or 17 and I realised that there was a possibility of a pathway to the AFL that I really began to take any interest. But genuinely from kind of the first phone call that was made to me about possibly coming out here, it wasn't like I just began to watch it because I could end up playing it. It was very much I started watching it and I was just like, this is unreal. This is a sick game. It's fun to watch. It's fun to play. But when I was starting out, I found it really fun to train, genuinely enjoyable, which obviously helped a lot with the transition. But I was aware of the game, but I didn't know the intricacies of it, didn't know many of the teams or even all the rules, but it didn't take me long to pick it up.
Growing up, did you have siblings? It sounds like you had a sporty upbringing. Did you play a lot of sport growing up back in Ireland?
Yeah, I played a heap, mate. Yeah, I played hurling as well. I don't know how familiar you are with hurling, Irish game.
Nice.
hurling, football, and soccer. That's what I played. But I'm the youngest of four, and I'm genuinely the only one in my family that ever really played sport. My sisters played a bit of basketball in school, but it's not a particularly sporty family. I was kind of the outlier. So yeah, it was me and all my mates who were desperate to play a sport at any given turn.
Hurling looks intense from afar. I've never obviously played it, but it looks so intense.
It's brutal.
And because is that the one where they're catching the ball from, like, it's a really hard ball. It goes a mile, they catch it. It looks brutal.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. It does look reckless if you haven't seen it or you haven't played it. But like, it's kind of like any sport. They're exceptionally skilled and they do know what they're doing, even if at times it looks kind of wild. And I'm not a huge hurling fan. Like, obviously, I've always preferred football, but an All-Ireland final, hurling, especially over the last 5 or 10 years, is one of the best sporting spectacles you'll ever see. It's up there with any sport in the world. It's high scoring, it's fast, it's kind of unzonable. A lot of ball sports kind of get bogged down in these zones. You can puck it over the bar from 120 meters out. So there's no point playing in zones, so it's a wicked game.
That's great.
Poking over the bar from 120 meters. How bloody good.
Yeah, it's a good game.
I read, just having a bit of a research to chat to you, mate. I read your old man was a prison officer growing up. And I wondered, I know you probably get a lot of these sorts of questions around your upbringing, but I wondered how you look back on your time growing up and then where you are now, and how much of an influence either your parents or your mates or your siblings had when you were growing up, and kind of where your life ended up going?
Yeah. Like, it's funny you asked that. My dad was a prison officer in a maximum security prison in Portlaoise. So Portlaoise, where I'm from, the prison is one of the biggest in Ireland and has been forever. And he worked in there, and it's the first chapter of my book is actually focusing heavily on what he did and the kind of characters he was mixing with, like, day to day. These are the worst of the worst kind of, I guess, criminals Ireland's produced get locked up in this prison. And I never really thought much about it. It's because growing up, your dad just does what he does. Like, a bit like footy, my kids never fully appreciated that playing footy might be different than any other job. But it's only on reflection now in writing this book that I've talked to him and heard some stories about what it was actually like during some turbulent times in the prison. And mate, it's full on. It's really full on. It gives you a slight appreciation. And he did that job to provide for us as kids. And I've just never had to do a job that I wasn't completely in love with. And even on its worst day, like, playing footy's, it's pretty good, and it gives you a good sort of sense, good perspective on things. But yeah, it was full on what he did for a long time.
Well, it's funny, your kids could look back on your career though. It's not, and I know it's fun and what a life to live as an AFL player, how fortunate everyone is. But you also see the downsides, right? The injuries, you're not putting your life on the line, but you're putting something on the line when you run out, playing footy. And as a footy player, you don't really, like you said, we're playing with our mates and run around and there's big crowds cheering and all of that. That's all the good stuff. But, I mean, you've sacrificed a bit to go and play at the highest level as well.
Yeah, and like, again, it's one of those things on reflection I'm kind of proud of. In the moment, I just feel like I was going to train each day. And it does feel a little bit like all of a sudden I'm 15 years in. Like, I think looking at it in its entirety, it's like, I've done all right from where I started. But it was just a case of kind of ticking off, one session at a time. I'm trying not to be cliched. That's super cliche. But it just feels like it's crept up on me. And I had some really kind of low times during my career. I think most players have, especially being away from home when I had my first kid. Again, I kind of speak a lot about that in the book. And that particular year was the worst year on field in my career, just because I didn't get the work-life stuff balance right at all. And I was really struggling. And then you kind of bounce out of it and your life kind of goes on. But it was touch and go there for a little bit as to whether or not I was going to continue playing. But it's nice to look back at those times and see how you got through it. And things are pretty good now.
So you came to Australia after effectively being scouted playing Gaelic over in Ireland. What was that experience like? I know you at the time didn't terribly enjoy being here, and maybe it was a bit of an afterthought that Zach Tuohy was running around in the training facility at Carlton, and you went back home for a couple of years, didn't you, that first time?
Yeah, I came out for a couple of weeks on trial, and I was so excited, and I was so sure I was going to love it, and it was going to be the professional dream I'd always wanted, and blah, blah, blah. And I came out for 2 weeks, and I hated it. Like, I just, players are looked after a fair bit better now if they come out on trial. But if at the time it felt like I was just kind of, shown into the club and left to my own devices, and as a 17-year-old who'd never travelled anywhere by himself before, that was pretty daunting. And I hated it. But fortunately, I went back for a year or two after that, and I knew I'd regret it if I didn't come back out and at least try. And to be honest, when I came out as a contracted player, I loved it from day one. So that experience might have just been an anomaly. But yeah, you're right. That first 2 weeks nearly scared me off.
What was it like when in Ireland? Did they have like a tryout sort of session? Was there like a group of people that were trying to sort of transition into the AFL, or did you just get hit up personally by someone?
Yeah, so it's called a minor competition. It's under 18s. And from that competition, they picked 25 guys from all over the country, and they just ran a combine at one of the big universities back home. And they invited us all to it. Did some fitness testing in the morning, and then we did skills in the afternoon. And I'm okay at the fitness stuff. Like, it's a bit better than average, but not amazing. And we went outside and did skills, and it was pissing rain that day. It was miserable. So, you have a bunch of blokes who've never kicked a footy before in the pisses of rain trying to, audition for a professional contract. And while I think I was okay in the fitness test, that was the bit that I couldn't do a lot better than the other Irish guys. And so I left that trial being really confident that I probably made a lasting impression on the scouts, because that's just not a part of the game I really struggled with as much as you might expect somebody coming from a different code. It just sort of seemed to click pretty early, and I felt comfortable holding the footy, and that was kind of my point of difference.
Not too early though, because Dan just typed in Zach Tuohy into YouTube.
Yeah.
No, not good, not bad.
Bit of research.
First
Zach Tuohy.
First touch.
Goal after the siren, is that?
No. You don't get to go there first. First touch in AFL footy. So you tell me that you had something over on the Irish boys.
Disappointing you would go for this low-hanging fruit. I thought higher of you. I really did coming on.
What happened? What happened? I'll talk us through it.
I bounced it on the only dry patch in Adelaide. It was pissing rain the whole game. That technically wasn't my first. It was my first touch, but it wasn't a disposal. My first disposal was, I'm sure, a magnificent kick inside 50 or something. Yes. But yeah, the first touch bounced it clean over my head. I put it up with a perfectly executed tackle on a player who didn't have the footy. Not the best.
It was brilliant, mate. I've never seen a bounce like it. Like, I would say it's the best bounce I've ever seen. Yeah. You put it 2 meters over your own head. It was unbelievable.
It was very ambitious.
There's been some highlights since. So if you want to,
that's right.
There is. Yeah. Don't worry. We like to knock off those early, but that was.
I can't believe how high it bounced.
It was unbelievable. So you come across to Carlton the second time around, and now you have a contract this time. What's I don't know, is there a cultural adaptation process where you're kind of like, oh, this isn't like home, or are you just like, oh, everyone's the same, it's just young people playing sport? Like, is there a difference to back home when you first come and that first few years?
Like, obviously there is, but like, culturally or societally, we're basically the same people. You have a better climate and different accents, and that's kind of it. And I think that's one of the things that really helped me. Even kind of the social aspect of life here is extremely similar to back home. Our humour is very similar. Like, there's so much crossover in areas that made it kind of easy for me to make that transition. Like, the only aspect of it that's tough is the homesickness. It's the being away from your family, and that would be just as challenging if I was in London, which is, less than an hour away, or anywhere else in Europe or America. So the distance is almost irrelevant because the societies are so similar. So the transition had some challenges, but that wasn't one of them.
Both love a beer as well, I think.
Yeah,
coming in with the social aspect, that would have been an easy point to bridge.
Yeah, and the coffee, a bit more coffee here. That'd be the only exchange our whiskey for your coffee, and we're basically the same.
Yeah, correct. What sort of senior leaders are at Carlton at the time you come to the club? Like, what sort of players are you influenced by when you first sign up?
Yeah, so there's a few. Like, a guy that had a huge impact on me was Heath Scotland. Early on, he really looked after me at different points in my career when I needed a bit of advice and a bit of guidance. And I actually coincidentally went back to him a couple of years after he retired and asked for his advice again around the time I got traded. So I think that tells you how comfortable I was, going to him. But Cade Simpson is somebody I really looked up to. Andrew Carrazzo was there at the time.
Yeah.
And that was 2010 or 11. So, Mark Murphy was about to come through and take over captaincy, and, Bryce Gibbs was earlier in his career. But yeah, I would say Scotland, Simpson and Carrazzo were kind of, obviously Juddy's a given, but those guys were the ones that were actually really good kind of culture setters.
And you're on BackChat, mate. So we champion backman.
Of course.
Do you come in and realise you're a backman? Like, I know you go forward and you kick goals and you sort of, play a bit of forward as a Cats player. You might have even played there in the flag, I think, but really you're a backman that's had to go forward and fix up the forward line, I can only assume. Did you know you were a backman when you came to Australia?
Yeah, they didn't give me much of a choice. They stuck me at half back. And I think that's where most of the Irish guys tend to start, because it is a bit easier to learn the game from there. And for the most part, I spent a year just following my opponent. Like, I was worried a bit less about the structure stuff and just kind of spent time coming to terms with the game. But yeah, it's clearly where my best footy's been played. I've played the lion's share of my career at halfback. But it's changed. I was a lockdown early, and then at Geelong I became a little bit more of the ball getter, as opposed to just a lockdown guy, and ended up on the wing. But yeah, my heart is down back.
Yeah, good. That's good to hear. Mick Malthouse, I assume he coached you at Carlton. What are your reflections on Mick as a coach?
Yeah, I'm one of the guys that really liked Mick. We had a great relationship, and I know he's kind of polarizing as a figure, and I get that. And I've seen, there's been plenty of examples of why players might not like him. He's kind of one of those that if he takes a disliking to you, it's a long way back. It's a long way back. But Mick, I've always felt he liked a bit of a project player, and I think he liked the idea of players that have kind of had to do it the hard way. So rookies, he kind of took a liking to, and I think he probably perceived me, or at least this is how I feel about it. I think he kind of looked at me and perceived it as a rookie. Came from a different country, had to learn, had to, start from the bottom type stuff. And I think he likes that type of player. So yeah, I'm one of the guys that has kind of only good things to say about Mick. I actually really enjoyed our time together. But yeah, I might be in the minority there.
Well, no, I don't think you are. Like, a lot of guys that we've had on who've played under Mick love him. Bit of a father figure type. You would have seen him rip shreds off someone though. Like, you would have seen some things. And maybe as, new to the game, new to the country, you're sort of thinking like, what is actually going on here? Like, got this bristly moustache just going absolutely berserk.
Yeah, and I've been on the receiving end of a couple of real good ones.
For what?
He did miss me up in Sydney one day, and then we played West Coast as well. I wonder if you were playing. Maybe not. It was in like 2014, I want to say. We came back from about 5 goals down in the last quarter at Marvel, where Eddie had at the time. And I just had a stinker that day. And it's actually you can find it online. It's quite funny. He was on the boundary as I turned it over right in front of him. Oh, no. And I came off, and you can see him. He used to have the curly finger. And it's just like, fuck me, no. And he gave it to me. And it was on camera, so that was funny. But yeah, he was targeted enough. Like, I reckon he picked his targets. I think it was a little bit more calculated than you might think. But yeah, he gave me a few.
We're going to have to find that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I reckon I would have been playing for sure. Did you win or
well, that's why we would have won. I think you were pretty influential in that last quarter comeback for us.
I guarantee you I would have had 3 to 4 umpiring decisions against me, top of the goal square. I'm arguing with umpires. No doubt about it. You play for Ireland, so the International Rules Series no longer happening, and that's probably thanks to a couple of Scott brothers, a few others around the traps that have gone the biff. That's right. What's that like playing for your country? Because that's something that not many get to do.
Yeah, look, it is incredible, and I don't know many people who played in it that didn't love it. And I agree, and I get that. international rules isn't as good as just Gaelic football or just AFL. I know it's a bit of a blend, and it's not quite as good as either individual code, but I just think I would love to see it come back. There isn't another opportunity for AFL athletes to represent their country and or Gaelic footballers. And I think we're at a point now where I wouldn't be too worried about the fights rolling back into the game. I think certainly from the AFL's point of view, I just don't see how any player could come from the way the AFL is right now, go and play for Australia and start belting blokes in the head. I just don't think that would fly anymore. So I'd love to see it come back. And the girls could easily play it now with the amount of Irish girls in the league.
That's a good point.
Yeah, true. Would you push for it? Would you sort of get behind it and rally to make it happen?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to do it. And I think there's talk of it potentially coming back quite soon. I would love to play in it again. And I don't think you'd have trouble. The only thing you have to do, and this is actually kind of more on the Aussies, to be honest, is field a strong team. I think what killed a couple of series is that the teams that the Aussies fielded weren't very strong, and it just made for an awful spectacle. Whereas if the criteria is you have to have won an All-Australian, for example, I actually think it ends up being a really good contest. And more often than not, if the Aussies field their strongest team, I think they'd probably win it. But it makes for a much better spectacle. So I like that criteria. You have to have had an All-Australian at any point. It doesn't have to be in the year just gone.
We're screaming out for something. You know, the fans want something in that.
Hell, give us AFLX back.
Yeah, well, no, we don't need the super-duper goal. No, we need that back. We're screaming for something, just not that.
Give us something.
But, you know, whether it's around this final stuff, State of Origin keeps getting thrown out, but you need too many players for State of Origin.
Yeah, true.
You need to go and get 50, 60 players to be playing State of Origin. For an Australian team, you need 22 players, 25 in a squad.
Yep.
I'm with you, Zach. I like it. So your time at Carlton, through that period, it's successful without the ultimate success. And how do you come to the point where you want to be traded? How does that come about? What's your mindset? What's that like?
Yeah, it was tough. Genuinely wanted to stay for most of that last year. It was 2016. It was Brendan Bolton's first year at the club, and I could sense things were going a bit pear-shaped early-ish in the year. But I was always like, well, things will be fine. I'll sign on and I'll just play out my career. But to be honest, by the end of that year, I was just cooked. I was quite certain the club didn't see me in their long-term plans, or at least Bolts didn't see me in his long-term plans. But I still kind of put it off till right at the very end of the season. And there was a couple of stipulations in my contract they put to me that year that really confused me and made me think that they probably felt I wasn't going to be in the team over the next 3 or 4 years. And at that point in my career, I hadn't missed a game for 3 or 4 seasons. I forget exactly how long, but it had been 3 or 4 full seasons of AFL without missing a single game. So I couldn't quite figure out the offer they put to me, and it all came to a head in the off season, and by that stage, I was pretty desperate to leave. I'd had enough, and it was tough. But yeah, that's just the way footy goes. I've seen it happen to far better players than me, so I can't really complain. And as it turns out, it was the best career decision I've ever made. Is the reality.
Well, Geelong, now people are saying it's one of the great destination clubs of all time, and being from Geelong, I can, one, see why people like living there, but two, I understand where Geelong's come from, and it wasn't a destination, I can tell you that right now. But when you moved there in 2016, it probably wasn't that destination footy club that I guess others are sort of starting to talk about now. So was it career success you were looking for? Was it money? Was it playing group? Was it coaching? Like what was it about Geelong that...
Yeah, it was a lot of those things, and it wasn't money. It was actually one of the worst offers I had.
Yes.
Of the options available to me,
Classic
which weren't
Geelong.
many, but financially it was the least impressive. But Geelong's reputation for how it does things with its players and how it schedules its weeks and treats its people is known throughout the league. Or at least it was common knowledge for me as a Carlton player at the time. The joke was that they were effectively part-time, that were given so much leeway to kind of do what we please, that, it's just this wonderful place to work. So I was aware of that. I had a young kid at the time. He was 2. So all the off-field stuff made sense because I knew how they did things. I knew for a pressured environment, it was as pressure-free as you can make an AFL club. And then there was the benefit of you can never guarantee success or premiership success. But if I was going to go to a club, I wanted it to be a club that would, at the very least, opportunity at winning one. And at that point, Geelong had shown over the previous 15 years that they don't really bottom out. Doesn't mean you win it, but chances are they're going to give you a few really good looks at winning one. So it was a kind of an easy enough decision in the end. You get the off-field life balance stuff, and I was pretty confident I was at least going to play out a couple of, final series pretty deep.
Yeah, it's interesting, that Geelong culture, because having never been inside it, I don't know what it is. Dan doesn't know, and a lot of people that don't get to play it or be involved in it don't see it. What is it? Is it player driven? Like, clearly Chris Scott's been an incredible coach at that footy club for a long time, but knowing how footy clubs work, or at least my experience, yes, the coach is important, but in the end, it is player driven culture. And is that what it is at Geelong?
Yeah, it's one of those words that's hard to pin down, and people kind of throw it out a lot. I've always thought of it as kind of, how do you feel rocking up to the club? Like, I'm sure you've had days, and so have I, where you're just like, I can't be bothered training today, or I really don't want to go in for that review, or whatever it might be. I've genuinely never gone to a review, for example, and thought, oh no, this is going to be bad. And I even give a few examples in the book of times where I was like, Scotty, surely this is the time he gives it to us. Like, it could have been after a string of bad performances. It could have been a uniquely bad performance, which we had one year against Essendon. I think we laid 25 tackles for the game. And I was like, oh, this has to be it. He called us into a meeting. I'm like, this is it. This is the pointy finger. And he just refuses to do it. In my 8 years at the club, I've never copped a spray. He's never pointed the finger at a player. It's just not how he operates. And over time, what ends up happening is that as a player, and I've put in plenty of average performances, as a player, I feel genuinely like I owe it to him to rectify these issues. And in the interim, there'll be a couple of players come in and out of the club that don't quite fit that mold. But after enough time, all you're left with is players who are like-minded and players who are genuinely, self-driven and want to do the right thing for the right thing's sake, and not because they're afraid of being punished or worried about 6 a.m. sessions. Like, he's had plenty of opportunities to do that, and we probably would have deserved it at different stages, but it's just not how he operates. So yeah, it's player driven, but honestly, I think Steve Hocking, Wellesley and Chris Scott have molded this club into something super unique.
Sounds bloody good.
Yeah, really bloody good, because what you're doing is, by not doing anything, you're empowering players.
Yeah, that's good.
How does becoming a father change what you do as a footy player, Zach? I know you've got a couple of kids, and one of them I think's 10. So that tells me around this period you've become a father. How does that change you as a footballer, but as a person too?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, a lot. The first year my eldest was born, who, by the way, might charge in this door in about 6 or 7 minutes. He's coming home from school. Apologies ahead of the time. It changes things a lot. On field, I really struggled in the first year. My output dropped dramatically. It was definitely my worst on-field year. But in terms of kind of the mental side of it, I end up, I just think it's like, again, it's a little bit cheesy, but those moments after games, wins or losses, when they're charging around the rooms, just gives you such a good sense of like kind of purpose, and lets you kind of reassess things. And I can even look at the prelim just gone. You can imagine, it's pretty devastating losing a prelim, and we were in the rooms, and we have a lot of dads at the club.
Yeah.
And the kids have just no sense of decorum at all. Like, they're charging around, like throwing footies when everyone else is kind of miserable. And it just pulls you out of it quicker than anything else. So I've had my moments with it. I don't know if I've nailed it, the whole parenting thing, but I think I'm doing all right, and they've been really good for me.
Yeah, the outside purpose other than footy that fatherhood and parenthood does for people, for mine. Like, I remember 2018 when we won, we had kids everywhere. I reckon there was about 10 of us that were dads, and new dads too. So we don't know what's going on as like we don't know what we're doing. There's like 6 month. I'm not talking about 6-year-olds, like 6-month-old babies, and like our beautiful partners of absolutely holding down the fort at home while we're trying to run around, chase a ball around, and it's sort of win lose. You got a kid there, and the purpose and the self-centeredness which comes of being an athlete, it goes away a little bit. Maybe.
Yeah, I agree. Like it kind of gives you a different motivator. Like it's something else to do it for, to quote unquote do it for. And I'm lucky in the sense my partner was like just like she couldn't have facilitated my career any better in terms of looking after nailing down the fort. And I am not easy to live with, especially during the footy season. Like I'm shit house, like I'm bad.
What are you? What grumpy? What
miserable. I'm miserable. Like,
well, like
don't let these interviews fool you. I am not like this Monday to Friday, but she's been incredible, and I'd hate to think how things could have gone pear shaped if I hadn't ended up with my now wife.
Yeah, that's bloody good. But you move to Geelong, you get going in a great culture, and some of the Geelong players we've spoken to across the journey, Tom Hawkins comes to mind, about the incredible success. So talk about all that culture and how that's happened. But if you talk about on field, it's just success and like the ability to have a chance at winning a grand final every year, which is what we all play for. And anyone can say what they like. But I would say that's why the vast majority of players play is to win a flag. And Geelong keep going back to the well in prelims and semis and, don't always get it right, but you give yourselves a chance. So that must have been bloody awesome to be a part of from 2016, that opportunity every year. You would have felt like every year you were with the Cats, you had a chance to win a flag.
Yeah, genuinely. It was incredible. In my first year at the Cats, we made the prelim and we lost it to Adelaide over in Adelaide. And at the time, that was just such a crushing blow. But I sort of quickly learned that like one of the things of playing for a really, good club and a club that constantly contends is that the one thing you're almost guaranteed is that there's going to be more devastation than you've ever experienced before, really. Because from a kind of a personal point of view, or certainly an ego point of view, it's almost easier not make finals than constantly get close and crash out. And as you get older as a player, I became worse at losing. I noticed how much more it was affecting me. And mate, by 2021, the prelim against Melbourne, genuinely, players say this stuff kind of, I was close to retiring after that. I just had enough. I couldn't go through it again. And like you snap out of it after a little while, but if you'd asked me in that moment or for the 2 or 3 days post that game, I was out. I was like, I can't keep making prelims and not getting it done. Or we'd lost the grand final the year before that. But the answer is always the same, and especially with Scotty, it's just that like I'll go all in again next year if you will. And it's pretty impressive from a coaching point of view because the pressure would be off him and off the club if they just said, you know what, it's been a good run. Let's maybe do a little clear out, get some draft picks, take a couple of years off and go again. I think nobody would blame Geelong if they did that. It takes a fair set of agates to constantly put it all out there. And by 2022, we'd lost a lot of big games in the previous 6 or 7 years. Yeah. And I think lesser clubs would have buckled to the AFL standard of, well, you've had a few cracks at it now, drop out, but just not in his makeup, like I said.
Yeah, well, but like you say, you don't get a chance to lose a big game if you're not in it. So there's plenty of clubs rolling around that don't even get the opportunity to. So you'd rather lose it than not be in it. And I'm sure you should have share the same thing. If we can just take a deviation, it's probably skipping ahead a little bit, but I think it's relevant.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, come say hi.
Blaine, come here. Come here for a second. I'm in your room. I'm in my son's room, by the way. In case you think like I have these posters. Say hi.
Hello, mate.
Hello.
How are you? Who's this?
What's your name?
Glenn, who are you?
Who are you?
How are you, mate? We're live across the country right now.
Podcast. You go sit on the couch.
Oh.
Okay, you go. Close the door, please.
Hi.
See you, mate.
Anyway, there you go.
Mate, he looks
Great.
tall. I don't know why he looks tall. He looks tall. I don't know. Is he tall?
But he is tall. But you do know I'm sitting down, right? Well, he is tall.
Oh, we thought you were standing desk.
That's very good, though. But where I was going was, so all this success, right? You guys, Geelong are just in the last teams in September. but you managed to, I think, and it's happened long before you were there, Mad Monday or Wacky Wednesday or Terrible Tuesday, whatever you want to call it, the dress-ups that I continue to see, which might add over the last few years, you've been going down on the waterfront at Eastern Beach there, right across the road from my mum's apartment. So every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it is, she'll be out there filming new blokes coming in and I'm getting live updates from mum. So shout out mum who listens to episodes. But I want to know, and I've never got to ask it to anyone, how early are you boys planning these dress-ups? Because you're going deep in September.
A lot of effort putting into these.
You don't know when you're going to be finishing up. For me, knowing how these things work, I was a big organiser of footy trips and Mad Mondays. You're not just the day before going, I'm just going to go grab a Lionel Messi costume and dress up. Like this is taking a fair bit of preparation. How deep are we talking?
Well, this is one of the sort of things I was talking about. You're allowed turn off a little bit, even in season here. It's okay to have these conversations early. The one that really tickled me was the year we won it and we all went dressed as old men, because that was the criticism. That got floated a couple of weeks out, and like you think you're tempting fate, because like if we had lost the prelim or the grand final, we can't rock up as old men. No. And a good chunk of the motivation to win that grand final was so I could walk around in a Zimmer frame, because I just thought it would be hilarious. So we managed to use these things as kind of motivation. But yeah, they're planned in advance. We just have creative players,
No, it's just brilliant. At different times during my career, I just don't think it floats. Like we always used to be skirting around the edges trying to organise a footy trip, and it's like, don't know if we can talk about this. But like if we're talking about the makeup you're going to be putting on to dress up like an 80-year-old man, like I feel like
absolutely
tempting fate's a good way to explain.
Someone's going to get a Sam McClure costume and a Harley Reid. That was probably all time. That one. They're not going to pick him, Mitch. That was a good one.
We enjoyed that. Who was that? That was
was it?
You can have whatever you want.
I think Blick Subs was dressed as Harley.
Who came as Harley and Sam McClure this year? Who did that?
Matt Blitzabs was Harley. Yes. Sam McClure was Tanner, and Max Holmes was Mitch Cleary.
That is right.
Which involved putting glasses on. I've never noticed how much like Mitch Cleary did.
I thought it was Mitch, to be honest. You've played in a lot of milestone games along the way, mate. So 100, 150, 200, 250.
Bang.
You finish your career as the effectively most capped Irishman of all time. What is that? Does that mean something to you? Of course, the great late Jim Steins sits second on that list with 264. You finished with 288. Does that mean something to you as an Irishman?
Yeah, it does. It was weird at the time. It kind of felt like I've said this at the time and I've said it since. I kind of felt like the bad guy a bit, because like Jim is a hero to so many people, and it sort of felt like that title should always be his. But I had the pleasure at the time and subsequently since of speaking to Sam Steins, Jim's wife. And she was just so lovely and kind of happy for me at the time that it genuinely put a whole different slant on it. And I would have been proud of it anyway, but I feel really good about it now. And they gifted me one of Jim's Melbourne jumpers. And I'm not a big memorabilia guy. I haven't framed any jumpers. I haven't done anything with the medal. It's just not my goal. But that Melbourne jumper will be like pride of place. It'll be the one thing. It's probably my most kind of cherished, like footy, memorabilia piece ever. So in the aftermath of having met Sam and their son Tiernan, I feel a lot better about it. I don't feel like the bad guy as much.
That's brilliant.
Now that you've retired, Zach, those memorabilia items will prove very valuable in the cashies.
He won't be selling that jumper.
No, not that one. Not that one. But all of your player ones that you can get. I've seen the money people can
Where
get.
have you seen that?
I don't know. Just around the place.
You haven't seen it, yeah. Mate, like I said before, I think you play footy for flags and premierships. So you miss out in 2020. 2020 against Richmond. Was that your first grand final you played in?
Yeah, first granny, yeah.
And then you get the ultimate success a couple of years later. Can you speak about both those games, whether the saying you got to lose one to win one holds true for you, and the learnings you had out of that year, even though it was a COVID year, compared to 2 years later being able to get it done?
Okay, thank you. He went out to the letterbox. So I'll go to the letter.
What a guy. There you
go. So like they felt very different. for obvious reasons. Like the COVID one was just kind of a weird setup anyway. But the 2020 year going in, it did feel like we had to like play just our absolute best to beat Richmond. Now, I was pretty confident we could, and we led for a good chunk of the game. But 2022, to me, by the time the grand final rolled around, I was just brimming with confidence in terms of what we could do. Like, I felt like we were so clearly the best team in the league that we would have to underperform, so that was a different kind of dynamic. And in a weird way, I felt more nervous going into 2022 because of the expectation, and not even externally. But I did just feel that if we didn't take that opportunity, I was just like, I'm not sure we'll ever get a better look than this. And that isn't at all to say Sydney couldn't have beat us on the day. Of course they could. They were an exceptional team. But we were just coming off the back of 15 or 16 wins. We'd pulled a lot of near misses, like a lot of games out of the fire that we probably shouldn't have won. And I was just really confident. But that bred a lot of anxiety about, you better get this one done, because if you don't, you're never going to get a better look. So both games felt pretty different. One, I felt like almost the underdog, and one I felt like we were strong favourites. So I was more nervous for the one I felt we were favourites in.
How about Joel Selwood? That was his last game before retiring. So was there any sort of added pressure on the fact that he was, one of the greats of the club, having that last opportunity to win a flag?
Not really. I think we all suspected he might retire. I genuinely didn't know, and I don't think any of the players genuinely knew for sure that he was going to retire. But I think, we could all sense that if things went well, he probably would. The day itself was just so spot on. Everything just seemed to work. It felt good going in. And from the start, it just felt like we were on. And for him to get the ending he got, not even just in the game, but that moment at the end where he got his goal and, he got to kind of look around and soak it in. It's like you don't get to choose how you finish. But if there's ever been anybody in the history of the game that deserved to go out like that, it was him. It's funny, the only thing you could ever level against him was that he wasn't a premiership captain. Now, I think you've set the bar pretty high when that's the worst critique you can level at somebody. But for him to tick it off in his last game, I think he deserves it.
Yeah, that was huge.
I saw the pictures and video of you walking around with an Irish flag. Was there, like post-game, was there moments in your career where you kind of like pinching yourself, or were you spending your whole career pinching yourself, or, is walking out to a grand final in front of 100,000 people before that even kicks off? Are you thinking like, how did I get here? Or are you more of a, this is where I'm meant to be sort of guy?
No, so I reckon at the start of your career, you have a lot of those moments, even just going into training and then your first few big games is like, wow, this is incredible. And as time goes on, I think you become a little bit immunized to how amazing that is, and you just rock up and play. I've been pretty aware of my kind of footballing mortality for a couple of years now. As far back as 2020, I was sort of considering that, I don't know how long I've got left. So I've made a really conscious effort in the last few years of my career to kind of, smell the roses a little bit. And my favourite place to do it is the G, just because in warm-ups, even before the crowd is in, it's just so much fun to look around. And my nephew came out last year to see me play there a couple of games, and he came out onto the ground as we warmed up, and I just said to him, like, this is my office. Like, this is where I get to come to work. And seeing his reaction kind of again makes you remember how much the 15-year-old wanted to be a professional athlete, and here you are at the MCG, like Australia's pinnacle of sport. But I mean, it's a world venue. It's an iconic sports world venue, and I get to play there very regularly. So I've been very aware of taking in those moments as often as I could over the last few years.
Getting to do that in a grand final as well, when you'd clearly won. What point of the game did that really sink in that you guys were going to be the premiers?
So halfway through the first quarter, or?
Yeah.
I think Izzy won a contested ball, and I knew that was it. There's no way back for Sydney, first of his career. No, I'm a pessimist. I think most players are in the moment. You never feel like the game's really over, but coming out at half time, I was really confident they were going to come out and start, maybe even try and start some kind of actual melee, like really get physical, and just if it boils over, it boils over. So I can remember saying on the way out, we just don't respond, because I thought they had to do something. And then in the first 5 minutes, I think we might have kicked 2 or 3. And there was one in particular that Brad Close kicked. It was from an intercept that was kicked across the face of goal. and he marked it straight in front. And to me, out on the ground, that felt like it kind of broke their spirits a small bit, because it was kind of, it happens, but it was a bit of a nothing goal. Like it didn't need to happen. And we'd already kicked one or two, and you could just feel, I think that's it. Like, I think that was the moment where it was just too far to get back. And then as the game went on, we just got to enjoy it. And I think Joel even called it at 3/4 time. He said, it's done and dusted, so let's play the right way for the last half an hour and enjoy it. So it was pretty special.
I'm half jealous, half love the fact that, we didn't know who was going to win until 10 seconds to go. But the fact that your captain's getting up at 3/4 time and telling the boys we've bloody done it, that must have been, it's a different feeling. You mentioned before about pulling some games out of the fire. So we started with one of the greatest bouncers of all time in your career, but we'll give you a chance
Sold
to talk.
some candy, though.
No,
we'll give props. Sold some candy.
Yeah, we'll give him a chance to talk about a good moment, though. Kicking that goal after the siren, that was pre-grand final, right? That was in the qualifying, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it was round 18 or a qualifying. It was one of them. It was something
round
like
18
that.
or
Come
a
on,
qualifying.
talk us through it, because as I said, the kid from Ireland, who's a backman, right? Who is a backman? Just from my recollection, floating across the front of a pack, going back, never going to miss, straight through the middle. Is that how it happened? Talk us through it.
Yeah, like just rolls like a phoenix is how I remember it. Like I think it was about 55.
Yeah.
Rolled onto me left. I can't remember exactly the details. It was a funny one, because I genuinely never played, I don't think, a minute in the forward line up to that point. And Matthew Scarlett tapped me on the shoulder at 3/4 time and said, go into the forwards group for the 3/4 time address. And he has said in the past he thinks I'd make a good forward just for my attributes, but it was always a bit of a gag, and I never took it seriously. And yeah, he swung me forward, and I'm not a hero. I'm just a normal guy. But on that night, on that night, I'm just like you, Scully. I'm just a regular guy. So I was pretty special on that night. I will forget the fact that Hall kicked 7, and I think he kicked 4 in the last. That's not.
No, I don't remember that. I don't think that happened.
No, I don't remember that. Hey, Zach, we have a rule here on BackChat, because obviously we back backmen and they're the heroes of the game, that backmen aren't allowed to score goals unless you get sent forward to kick the game winner.
Yes.
Perfect situation there. So you have our blessing for kicking that goal. Absolutely.
I feel like a caveat could be, if one of the greatest fullbacks of all time in Matty Scarlett is the man to send you forward.
Absolutely.
And you need to kick the goal to win a game after the siren. I feel like we can pull that into the rules.
that's
so you are forgiven.
Yeah.
But great job.
Yep.
I was worried he wouldn't forgive me.
Another moment that I'd forgotten about, I'm sure you didn't, you lost, Buddy kicking his 1,000th goal. You're involved in that one. How did that moment go for you? Buddy's 1,000th goal. It's going to be a big day. You boys probably didn't perform the way you would have liked. I'm sure you would have liked to have, spoil the show a little bit, but there was a fair bit going on after that one.
A lot.
Yeah. It was. I was genuinely, like I said, I'm a bit sour at the best. Like if we don't win, I don't see any silver linings typically. It's only on reflection that I think how cool it was to be a part of it. And I know I ended up got shirt fronted by one of the Sydney. See, the problem was there were thousands of fans running on, and they're running this direction with their phones, looking at their phones like this. So nobody's looking where they're going.
Yeah.
And I think a few players might have just been lined up as well by some supporters. But I'm glad now, knowing how that year panned out, I'm glad I got to be a part of it, because I'm not sure we'll ever see it again.
We spoke to Chad Warner, who ended up outside the ground. He was getting hot dogs out the back while you guys reset. You were giving back wallets, didn't you find someone's wallet?
Yeah, the guy who ran into me, and I was furious. But as he stood up, his wallet and keys, or it was his phone and his wallet. It was two things, I forget now. But and I chased after him, and I grabbed him by the collar, and he looked back at me and kind of half like shit himself. I think he thought I was coming back for seconds. But I gave him back his keys or his wallet, whatever it was, and got out of there as quick as I could. But we had to come back out and play 5 minutes, and it was just like the queues in the rack. It was like we'd all shut up shop. It was like, let's just get through this.
Now, those items would have been lost forever.
Oh, you're gone.
There's no way he's getting that back.
Imagine if you boys took him down into the rooms though and started like calling him and
buying stuff with that game. Knowing because Buddy brought there was like family that came and watched over. They must have known that they were going to go for it. Did you guys have anything in you like let's stop this from happening?
Not particularly. I mean, it's pretty hard to stop Buddy at the best of times. I'm not sure you really need kind of extra incentive and. Yeah, he was on. And look, we knew that if he kicked a couple, they would start feeding him. But again, it's kind of one of those things it's pretty hard to stop. And yeah, like I said, looking back now, I'm kind of glad it happened when it did. I think they might have been traveling the next week. I think they had kind of coordinated his, selection around kicking that goal in Sydney. But no, we didn't particularly speak about stopping that. We just tried to stop, one of the all-time greats, which is pretty hard to do.
So my direct family go to every Geelong game. I threw a few messages out, said, tell me something about Zach Tuohy I don't know. I liked this the best. This is the best of the lot. I said, ask him about the Cats playing the Rattle and Bog Irish jig every time he kicks a goal. Talk to us about what's going on.
This is like an old kind of clap along, stamp your feet, Irish, fiddly-dee type song. And it wasn't my idea. I don't know where they plucked it from. But I think it was played once, maybe it was the Jim Steins game. I can't remember. And I think it was meant to be a one-off, but the crowd love it. Like, they love it. They're frothed. They start clapping along and fist bumping, and they do it for all the Irish guys. So it's kind of become a staple of our home games. If I kick one or if Mark O'Connor kicks one, they play it. Mate, they love it.
That is brilliant, because I had a little listen to it before we jumped on. I was like, yeah, this is what this is meant to be. This is brilliant.
I could sink pints in like a dingy old pub listening to that. Yeah. That'd be great.
Mate, you finished 2024, your last season. You boys have a run at it, don't get it done. But you said you've been smelling the roses a bit towards the back end of your career. What's the back end of this year been like for you? And now that you're done, I don't know, how do you feel?
It's strange. Yeah, I'm not sure how you found the first couple of months out of the system. It's like you're a little bit institutionalized, so I'm not sure what to do with kind of my free time. And it hits me at different times. Like it hits me a lot, like with food and stuff, to be honest. Strangely enough, it's like, why not add a bowl of chips to this meal? And I never felt like I was like, I've never had an issue with conditioning or my weight or anything. So diet's never been a huge issue. But it just kind of highlights to me how often as an athlete you kind of make these subconscious decisions not to do things. Because now that the pressure to perform is gone, I find myself, this was one of those times when I just wouldn't have done this, or have a beer and watch the footy during the week and all these little things. So it's hitting me at different stages. And I would have traditionally been back training this week or last week, and I haven't done a run yet. That's weird to me. Like, it feels strange. So yeah, it's hitting me at different stages. But I'm at a point where I'm still really excited. I don't feel like there's that kind of cliff coming that some people talk about. But I know that will come for me, and I know it's going to be for me, it's just going to be not having a physical goal to go for. It's not even so much the footy. I know I'm going to have to put stuff in place where I can do some kind of physical challenge, whatever that might be. I love my cycling at the minute, so it could be some big rides and big races, but I'm going to need something to work towards. But for right now, I'm just kind of enjoying not having that performance anxiety.
Might see you down at one of the rec leagues, D-grade men's basketball on a Tuesday night, lining up against Zach Tuohy, something like that.
Divi 12 soccer. I really want to play soccer, and I want it to be absolutely non-competitive against slobs who can barely stand up. I'm not looking for my competitive fix there. I just want to play and score goals.
Well, if you do want to come over to Perth on a Monday night, we play for BackChat FC. I would describe it as probably Divi 16 type areas.
Yeah.
Even last night, Dan was sent off.
I got sent off.
Got a red card. And I tore the groin off my bone. I can't walk. I reckon it's a 12-week groin.
So that's exactly the level I was hoping for. Yeah. You literally described hit the nail on the head.
If you're in Perth, you can feel in on a Monday night.
Maybe.
Yeah, there's 5 teams in the comp, so every third week there's a bye. It's a farce.
That's good. And I know your eyes on a bit of media work, which, following your journey a little bit as a player, I've always appreciated how open and honest you've been with the media as a player. And I think you can tell players that will be suited for the media by just watching how you operate as a player. So assuming that's something you want to be doing. Of course, you've released the Irish Experiment, which I guess talking about your journey is kind of promoting what that book's about. But is that a little bit what the future looks like?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I've always really enjoyed this space. Like, I genuinely kind of love what you've got going there. I think that's exactly the mold that I would like to end up in one day. And the book is basically everything we've just spoken about. It was a very cathartic experience writing it, but a lot of what I do in the public sphere, certainly in the speaking space, which I'm also interested in, will just be a reflection of the book. But yeah, I'm really excited to kind of get in and try a few different things. And I'm really passionate about the media stuff. I've always found it really good fun.
I reckon we got to home to Zach Tuohy
we'll sort you out.
Stage.
We'll sort you out.
Hey, Zach, it's been great chatting to you, but we're not done with you yet. You've had enough questions from Dan and I. We've got a bit of time for social media. Not social, Scotial. Yes, I thought you might like that. I thought you might like it. This is where the fans get to ask you the questions, mate. So we've got a few good questions coming through across socials. Daniel, you can take it away.
Yeah, this is from John_Dawson. What makes Geelong coaching panel work so well?
Yeah, I mean, look, they know exactly the type of personality they want. And occasionally, the whole thing gets changed. I think that happens at every club, but they're very calculated with who they bring in. And Geelong has been particularly good at keeping hold of Geelong people. So Corey Enright coached here when he finished. Matthew Scarlett did. James Kelly's back now. Nigel Lappin obviously didn't play at the Cats, but he's been at the club for 10 or 12 years. So you kind of got these consistent threads that never really change. So yeah, they're extremely calculated with the personality they bring in.
Great. This is from Poot Triava. What's your favourite tattoo? There's a few there.
There is a few. Yeah, I've got a lot. There's one on the back here, which is a pocket watch, which sometimes can be seen as a little fairly common one, but this is actually a photo of a pocket watch that my nan gave to me. She got it. It's from Lourdes, which is like a holy retreat in France, I think. Now, I'm not myself particularly religious, but she gave it to me when I moved out here first. Still hanging out in my car. So I'd probably say that one on the back.
Yeah, I like that.
This is from Wardy_85. Best moment on the golf course, was it playing with Ron Chopper? Big name.
Well, no, do you know what? I played with Ron Chopper and it was really good fun. And I absolutely played out of my skin that day. But on the second shot of the day, I thinned it clean over the back. And people only watched the first 5 minutes. So if all they've watched was that first 5 minutes, they'll think I'm a hack. And I kind of am, but I actually played well that day. But yeah, maybe that. I never made a hole in one, so I guess I have to go with that.
This is from Trent 2522, and I like this one. What is it? Was it a mad coincidence that you have the number 2 available, or did you have to pay someone?
Didn't have to pay anyone, but I did pick it. In fact, my old man was big on me playing the number 2 because of the 2E2. It's not very creative, but that is generally why I picked it. There was a few numbers available, but 2E2, that's why I picked it.
Yeah, I like that.
This is from Saxon Salmons. Best Irish pub in Geelong.
Oh yeah, well Murphy's is a regular haunt for me. Yeah, it's down the road here, and they've done it up. It's really good. I don't know if you've been there recently, Scotty, but it's bloody good now.
Yeah, it's been there for a long time. Irish Murphy's. My brothers used to go there. My brothers have got 20 years on me,
right?
But they've done it up. Brilliant. Like it a lot.
This is from J_Jelly. Who on the Cats list is splitting the G?
Everyone who has a Guinness splits the G. It's become a really popular event at the Cattery. Blitz Abs tries it. He is categorically the worst I've ever seen. Yeah, everyone tries it.
Who's the best? Go on. You can't not answer.
Who do you reckon?
Well, other than you.
Okay. Who's good at it? Nigel Lappin. As one of the coaches, he loves a Guinness. He's actually sneaky good at it. So, yeah, we'll give it to him.
I'll write that.
Who's one player you'd love to have had a beer with? Or who's one player, that you'd like to have a beer with?
Out of Geelong.
Now, we'll say out of Geelong.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Shivers. There's a few. Do you know who was my favourite player from an opposition team for a long time? It was Robbie Gray. Yeah. But that was from an on-field performance guy. I used to love him. And then for shits and giggles, Joey Danaher just packed it in. He's a good egg. I know a lot of guys we've a lot of mutual friends, and he's one guy that I've been assured is a really good, genuine guy.
You boys need to link up then. You both hung the boots up, and you can just
mustachioed. Yeah,
that's right. Point. Last one from me is Bailey Smith going to Geelong.
It's way above my pay grade. I'm not even going to Geelong. I hope so. He's a good player. with me going out and him coming in, the overall aesthetic of the club has absolutely skyrocketed.
Oh, man.
I was going to say, there's a fair bit of likeness, isn't there?
Yeah,
I mean, I've seen
six-pack.
some of his Instagrams of late, and I immediately thought, Zach Tuohy.
But you know what's funny is I genuinely have it hanging up in there somewhere. The jumper I was wearing against the Bulldogs when we had that little
That's
scuffle.
right. Yes,
And
he
it
headbutted
got
you.
ripped. The jumper's ripped,
Yeah.
and I still have it in there.
Right.
So I might present it to him when he rocks up with the Cats.
Because you were bleeding, you got the ripped jersey. That was I forgot that happened, the headbutt. And then the
There's nothing wrong with a bit of a
you love a
headbutt,
headbutt.
mate.
Scully loves a headbutt. Have you seen his one?
It's pretty poor.
His head or his...
No, I look, my head made contact. I would say, Zach Butters, last name Butters, I
Yep.
felt like it was ironic.
Yeah, right.
Headbutt Butters.
Yep, there you go.
Sorry, don't worry about
The
it.
actual last one is, how does Zach Tuohy like his eggs from the Eggman?
From the Eggman. Daddy eggs in my house are fried eggs. I have fried eggs on game day, and my son, we've started calling them daddy eggs. So fried eggs.
I like that.
Daddy eggs.
I want to go to a cafe and go, get me the daddy eggs. Let's go.
Sorry, sir. You have to
Yeah,
leave.
that sounds weird. You just be careful. That sounds.
Especially with that tone.
Don't want the daddy eggs.
Mate, it's been brilliant chatting to you. We appreciate your time. We'd love to, I don't know, have you on BackChat
get you some
weekly, or when you're in Perth, catch up again in person, try and split a G or something like that. I don't know. It's been
I
brilliant.
would love that. That would absolutely be fantastic.
And go get the Irish Experiment, the book.
Correct.
Is out now? Oh, well, actually, this is going to come out in a few weeks,
Yeah.
but I'm sure it's out.
Yeah, she's out.
It's out on the 4th of November.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yeah.
I can only assume
Perfect Christmas
that's
present.
sold in every good bookstore known to
Yeah.
man.
Amazon, Dimmicks, I don't know. What does Geelong have? What's the Geelong
Wherever
bookshop?
you buy your books from.
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
Kiddie
Brilliant.
section.
Yeah, correct. No, not this one. This is going to be a great watch. That's right. Go and get yourself the Irish Experiment. That has been Zach Tuohy, brought to you by Paywise, of course, our good friends there. ID Athletic, Whippersnapper Whisky. Might have to send the bottle over to Zach, I reckon. Mamba Digital, TABtouch, Shelter Brewing Co, Leadable Precinct, Camera Electronic and Mamba Digital. You just got doubled up, Mamba. Congratulations. BackChatStudios.com.au does it all. Zach, thank you. We bid you farewell.
Pleasure. Thanks, guys.